The envelope was postmarked 3 weeks ago, but I only opened it today. A final notice from the hospital, $3, 8:42 past due, addressed to my mother. The same bill my sister swore she paid months ago. My first instinct wasn't panic. Just stillness. The kind that settles when something breaks quietly. I walked over to my laptop, typed in the login to the shared account we created for Mom's care. Balance, $0. Not low. Not pending. Just empty. I dialed Natalie. She picked up fast, like she knew I would. I already paid everything, she said. You don't need to check up on me. No greeting. No apology. Just dismissal. The call ended, but the silence after spoke louder than her voice. I didn't argue. Not yet. But something wasn't adding up, and when it doesn't add up, I don't let it slide. My name's Aaron. I'm 38, live just outside Milwaukee, and until recently, I split my time between managing IT systems at a local firm and handling what I called the family logistics, insurance, banking, hospital calls, and, more recently, everything involving Mom's care. IT wasn't something I asked for. It just made sense. I was the one with a stable schedule, the cleanest credit history, and the ability to stay on hold for 2 hours without losing my mind. I didn't complain. That's not how I was raised. You step up, you do the work, and you don't make a scene about it. Natalie was different. 5 years younger, warmer by nature. She could charm a stranger in 5 seconds flat. She and Mom shared an easy closeness. Movie nights, long talks on the couch, little inside jokes I never quite understood. I never resented that. Not really. But there were times I felt more like the designated problem solver than a son. Natalie wasn't irresponsible in the chaotic way some people are. She just wasn't built for structure. One minute she was starting a custom candle business. The next, she was borrowing money to keep her apartment. She always bounced back, but there was always bouncing involved. When Mom's health started to slide, slowly, then suddenly, I opened a joint care fund. Nothing fancy, just a shared account, 2 contributors, both with access. We agreed on an equal contribution each month. I handled most of the invoices in the beginning. Prescriptions, transport, home nurses. Natalie asked if she could take over bill payments. Said she wanted to feel more involved. I remember hesitating. Not out of arrogance. I just knew how she managed money. But I was tired. Emotionally, logistically. I let it go. I thought, she's grieving too. She wants to help. I clicked, transfer access. And now, that decision is sitting like weight on my chest. The signs were there, but like most slow betrayals, they came wrapped in everyday excuses. The first bill came a few days later than usual. Then another. Natalie shrugged it off. They're always behind. You know how billing departments are. And honestly, I did. I'd spent enough time wrangling insurance reps and invoice clerks to believe her. But over the next couple of months, the pattern didn't change. It deepened. Statements came less frequently, but the amounts were always rounded, imprecise. Natalie was always ready with an explanation. It's already paid. I just haven't sent the receipts yet. Sometimes she'd mention a backlog at the home care agency or a misfiled charge. She always sounded annoyed that I was even asking. Then came the afternoon. A nurse pulled me aside in the hallway. Mom had just finished her oxygen treatment, and I was packing up her things. The nurse leaned in, careful, like she didn't want to overstep. I know your sister said this month's covered, she said gently, but we haven't received anything since mid-September. Are you sure someone's handling the invoices? That moment stuck with me. Not just the words, but the tone, tentative concern, like she didn't want to embarrass me. I remember nodding, brushing it off. Yeah, it's handled. I told myself Natalie probably just forgot to follow up. Maybe she was juggling too much. Maybe she just wasn't built for logistics, and this was slipping through the cracks. But now, looking back, I don't think anything slipped. Mom passed in early November. It was quiet, as far as those moments go. Peaceful. Natalie took charge of the obituary. She picked out the casket. She greeted every guest at the funeral with practiced grief, arms wide, mascara already smudged. She made her sorrow visible, public, almost cinematic. I stood back, letting her have the spotlight. It wasn't a time for ego, but even then, something felt off. She cried loudest, but never once mentioned settling the last month's bills. Not a word about the hospice invoices. Not a question about closing out the care account. I waited, thinking maybe she'd bring it up after the funeral, once the emotional fog cleared. She never did. Weeks passed. I focused on estate paperwork, closing utilities, canceling prescriptions. Natalie moved on quickly, back to brunches, planning a vacation, posting tributes to Mom online like a badge of mourning. And I kept wondering, was it grief that made her so dismissive, or was it something else entirely? I wanted to believe it was just poor communication, a misunderstanding. But that quiet question from the nurse haunted me more than anything Natalie ever said, because in that moment, someone outside the family saw what I refused to. And I chose not to look deeper. Not yet. There was no confrontation, no angry phone call, no accusatory message typed out in haste. I just went quiet. Not the passive kind of silence that comes from confusion or fear, but something colder, controlled. I knew I couldn't say anything without proof, and proof doesn't arrive through suspicion alone. It has to be built. So I started building. I went through the shared account history first, not just the balance, but every deposit and withdrawal from the past 6 months. Line by line, I pulled receipts from emails, matched dates to invoices, cross-referenced them with the hospital system's patient portal. What was labeled paid in her texts often wasn't even marked received on the back end. Meanwhile, Natalie texted me as if nothing had happened. A meme here. A thinking of Mom today red heart message there. She even asked if I'd cleaned out Mom's closet yet. Said she wanted a few things for memory's sake. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry. Anger wasn't the dominant emotion anymore. It had burned off quickly, leaving something more useful behind. A strange, steady numbness paired with a growing sense of resolve. There was something deeper going on, something intentional. The pattern of misstatements wasn't random. The delays weren't just forgetfulness. And if Natalie thought I'd just let this pass because we shared a bloodline, she misunderstood who I was. I've always preferred clarity over noise. And right now, clarity meant silence. The kind of silence that takes notes. The kind that waits for numbers to add up. Because sooner or later, numbers always do. The first thing I did was export 6 months of bank statements into a spreadsheet. Nothing fancy, just clean rows of data, every transaction tied to the care fund account Natalie and I had used. I filtered by amount, vendor, date. Most charges looked normal at first. Recurring pharmacy purchases, lab fees, clinic copays. The kind of stuff I expected to see, but then came the Venmo entries. Dozens of them. Some labeled utilities, others just groceries or care items. Vague descriptors with no matching receipts in the shared email. At first, I assumed she was just paying things from her own accounts and reimbursing herself. Sloppy bookkeeping, maybe, but not malicious. Still, the amounts didn't make sense. $480 labeled med run, $620 for transport. Even if you doubled every Uber ride and assumed premium service, that number wouldn't check out. I copied those Venmo entries into a separate sheet and started pulling totals. The number crept past $3,000, then $5,000, then $7,000. And still, I hadn't found a single verified match to a real provider. One charge caught my eye. $398 on a Sunday evening. Tagged as home support. I searched the amount and vendor ID. It traced back to a boutique spa across town. I called them the next morning. Asked, casually, if they had a client named Natalie. The receptionist confirmed without hesitation. She came in for a series of treatments. Facial package, massage combo. She paid up front. Another charge, $960, was tied to a formal wear boutique. I emailed them next. The invoice they forwarded listed a wedding dress rental under Natalie's name. I read it twice. The date? Right in the middle of Mom's last month in hospice. The truth wasn't hiding. It was sitting right there in the numbers, bold as daylight. I kept digging. Pulled up every care invoice from the hospice center. Dates, due amounts, payment status. Many had been issued, but several remained unpaid. Some were weeks past due. I double-checked with Mom's nurse, Elena, who had always been direct with me. She confirmed it plainly. Your mother's final month of care still hasn't been settled. We've sent reminders, but haven't heard back. She didn't sound accusatory, just tired. I asked if she ever saw Natalie hand over payment during visits. Elena hesitated, then said, she always said it was handled, that you were in charge. That was the moment things snapped into focus. Natalie hadn't just skimmed a little. She'd taken control of the entire account and diverted funds for herself, all while our mother declined in a rented hospital bed, one invoice away from collections. This wasn't carelessness. It was orchestration. I gathered everything. Every transaction with questionable labeling. Every unpaid invoice. Every email thread confirming charges. Every phone call I'd recorded for clarity. I printed the documents out, line by line, labeled, color-coded. It looked clinical on paper. Cold, almost. But behind every line item was a broken promise. A moment I had trusted her, it hit me differently now. The way she clung to people at the funeral. The way she cried, loud and unfiltered, as if trying to prove something. I kept wondering if that grief had been real, or if it was just another expense paid in the currency of appearances. Grief doesn't excuse theft. And proximity doesn't equal loyalty. This wasn't about a few dollars missing or a forgotten receipt. It was about a deliberate decision made again and again, while I stayed silent, assuming the best. That part was on me. But staying silent any longer wouldn't be. Once the documents were in order, the next step didn't require emotion. It required precision. I wasn't looking for drama. No confrontations in kitchens. No raised voices across family tables. I wanted accountability, clean, documented, and silent. I called Mr. Rayner, the family lawyer who'd handled Mom's will. A reserved man in his 60s who never rushed a sentence and never missed a detail. I asked if we could meet privately. I told him what I'd found, shared the documents, and asked one question. If she were anyone else, would this be prosecutable? He didn't hesitate. Absolutely. Especially with the joint fund being tied to your mother's medical care. You have clear evidence of misappropriation. We set the meeting for the following Thursday. Neutral ground. His office. No names mentioned. In the invitation, just a short email asking Natalie to sit down for one last round of estate closure paperwork. She agreed right away. Casual. No questions. The day arrived without incident. She walked in wearing light makeup, a denim jacket over a dress I didn't recognize. Not morning black, a soft yellow floral print. She smiled. I hope this won't take long. I've got plans later. I didn't reply. Mr. Rayner greeted her politely, then gestured toward the table. 3 chairs. One for him, one for her, and one for me. On the table was a single manila folder. I slid it across to her, slow and deliberate. She opened it. Scanned. The first page. Her posture stiffened. By the second sheet, her fingers started tapping the edge. Third page in, she spoke, barely above a whisper. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. No one responded. She tried again. You don't understand. Mom said it was fine. She wanted me to use the money. Mr. Rayner leaned forward. That account was established solely for your mother's medical care. These funds were diverted to personal use with no authorization. You're not under criminal investigation yet, but as executor, Aaron has the right to pursue civil action immediately. Natalie looked at me, searching for something, empathy, maybe, or a signal that I'd step in and soften the blow. I gave her nothing. I wasn't angry in that moment. I was finished. She asked what the alternative was. Mr. Rayner laid it out plainly, signed the document in front of her, a repayment agreement with scheduled deposits back to the estate account, or risk a lawsuit and a formal report to the state's Elder Financial Abuse Unit. Natalie signed. No questions, no arguments. She just scribbled her name, eyes on the floor. I didn't speak until the end. Just one line before leaving the room. You didn't just steal money. You erased trust. And that's not something you can pay back. She didn't reply. Some debts aren't financial. Some are owed in silence. It didn't take long for the story to leak. In families, silence is never airtight, especially not after a funeral, when everyone's still calling just to check in, but really listening for cracks. A cousin reached out first, asking if it was true that Natalie had been asked to repay part of the estate. I didn't lie. I sent the same 3-line summary I'd repeated too many times already. The fund was misused. Documents were signed. It's being handled privately. No names. No drama. Just facts. But Natalie took a different route. Within days, she was on the phone with anyone who'd listen, painting herself as the victim of a power grab, claiming I was always too controlling and never liked how close she and Mom were. Her version of events sounded like a messy sibling dispute dressed up in legalese. She even implied I'd hired a lawyer to scare her, skipping over the fact that the lawyer in question had been on retainer since our mothers. Living trust was created, but people aren't blind. She hadn't counted on how many family members had seen the invoices pile up, or how many of them knew she'd taken that sudden spa trip right after Mom passed, or how she'd posted Instagram stories from a rooftop wine bar the day the hospice bill was due. Her version cracked under scrutiny, not from a courtroom, but from dinner tables and back porch conversations where people still had long memories. The group chat went quiet for her. One aunt stopped liking her posts altogether. Another cousin unfollowed her entirely. Little shifts. No grand declarations. Just a steady erosion of credibility. She texted me once, just once, 2 weeks after the meeting. "You didn't have to humiliate me." I didn't reply, because that wasn't what this was about. I wasn't seeking humiliation or revenge. I didn't parade the documents around. I didn't speak poorly of her to anyone who hadn't asked directly. I let the truth carry itself, and it did. Point 3. Months later, someone mentioned she'd moved out of state. Quietly. No announcement. Just gone. The estate finished closing soon after. Medical bills were finally paid. I made sure every receipt was filed, every balance cleared. No ceremony, just completion. It was the first time I'd felt real air in my lungs since Mom's last breath. A few weeks after that, we held a small gathering, nothing formal. Just 8 of us at the lake house to mark what would have been Mom's 70th birthday. No decorations, no speeches, just potluck food, her favorite lemon pie, and a playlist she used to hum along to while cleaning on Sundays. Natalie wasn't invited. No one brought her name up. Midway through the evening, I stepped out to the back deck with a glass of iced tea. My cousin Linda joined me. We stood in the quiet for a while, watching the water turn amber under the setting sun. Then she asked, softly, "You okay?" I nodded. Better than I've been in a long time. I didn't toast out loud, not in the way people expect. But as I looked across the table later, watching people laugh without hesitation, without tension, I raised my glass slightly and said, more to myself than anyone else, Mom deserved honesty. That's all I ever wanted. No one cried that night. And for the first time, it didn't feel like anything was missing. It's been 6 months. Life didn't change overnight, but it did shift. Quietly, like a house settling after years of tension in its beams. I've gone back to a rhythm that feels more like me. Work during the week, coffee shop visits on Sundays, evenings spent balancing my own books, down to the last dollar. Not because I'm obsessed with control, but because I no longer assume anyone else is watching out for the details that matter. That care fund account has long since been closed. The hospice invoices are paid, every line accounted for. I still make small donations in Mom's name, not out of guilt, but gratitude. She deserved dignity, even if the people around her didn't always protect it. I visit her grave when I can. It's not a ritual. Some months I go twice. Some, not at all. There's no performance in grief anymore. No expectations. Just presence. Natalie never reached out after that final text. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. And I've made peace with that. I no longer feel responsible for her discomfort or absence. Some people walk away because they're ashamed. Others because they're unwilling to be held accountable. Either way, chasing them never changes the outcome. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said family means doing what's right for the people who share your name. I still believe that. But now, I believe something else, too. Family is about values, not just blood. It's about who you can count on when it's inconvenient. Who pays the bill when no one's watching? Who tells the truth even when it hurts? I didn't expose Natalie to ruin her. I exposed what she did to protect what was left of my mother's legacy. That legacy isn't about money or property. It's about the quiet way she lived, honest, grounded, no shortcuts. I carry that forward now. There's no gloating in how it ended. No social media posts. No dramatic retellings at family dinners. Just the quiet confidence of someone who chose clarity over comfort. That I still pay bills. Still manage accounts. Still track every transaction. But now, they're mine, and only mine. And that's the kind of peace no one can drain from an account. Money can be replaced. Trust? That's a one-time currency.